Hello, Internet! I'm Elliot the Purple Hair Doofus, and welcome back to the conclusion of American Gods by Neil Gaiman. That's right, you heard me correct. We are concluding this book, finishing it, finito, done. So I hope you finished it too, because I don't want to ruin anything for you. The end of our last section actually finished off the main story of the book. These last few chapters are tying up loose ends, which is why, at the end of the last video, I asked you what was the most annoying loose end you've ever encountered. Because I was really worried that some loose ends were not going to be picked up in this book, and I'm so happy that I was wrong. So chapter 19 has Shadow and Anansi, and they are going off to Florida. While they're in Florida, Shadow keeps on asking Anansi about Chernobog, whether or not he should report to Chernobog, and whether or not he should do what needs to be done with Chernobog. And Mr. Nancy says, you can try and avoid it all you want, but he's gonna find you when the time is right. And Shadow's just kind of like, okay. So Shadow and Anansi are performing karaoke, and Shadow's like, no way, man. Good on you, Shadow. Good on you. But while Anansi is performing karaoke, Shadow kind of has an aha moment because he's thinking of the god Ganesh with the elephant head and the giant trunk. And Shadow goes back to Lakeside, which was the small town that Odin had hidden him in, and he sees the car still on top of the frozen lake and how the ice is getting closer and closer to letting the car fall, and he trepidatiously walks out onto the ice, opens up the trunk, and finds the missing girl frozen dead in the trunk of that car, because he's finally put it together. All of those missing kids from the small town mystery that was forming in Lakeside that I was getting so annoyed was just kind of cut off. All of those missing kids were put into the trunk of the car that was put on the top of the frozen lake. All of those missing kids were a sacrifice. While he's trying to get the missing girl out of the trunk, the car actually falls through the ice. He falls with it. He nearly drowns in the frozen water, and he is pulled out by Hinzelman, who drags him away. He's warming up in a warm bath at Hinzelman's place. Then he asks Hinzelman why he put all those kids in the trunk of the car, and why Hinzelman had sacrificed all of those kids. And I'm just thinking, not Hinzelman! Hinzelman was so awesome and cool, and why does he have to be the killer, and why? Why? Hinzelman explains that it was an offering to keep kind of a shield around Lakeside, to keep it as a kind of, what would you call it? That one place that cops use, a safe house from new and old gods. He also explains that Shadow wasn't the first person to figure it out. Chad Mulligan's father, the current police chief's father, figured it out too, and Hinzelman killed him. And then Hinzelman reveals himself to be a kobold, which is a small child. The small child is brought up in some ridiculous conditions. They are born, and then they are never touched for 6 or 7 years. At the end of those 6 or 7 years in this empty, dark room, experiencing nothing, not touch, not social cues, experiencing no one. The child is brought out of the dark room and then sacrificed to the gods. And Hinzelman reveals himself to be one of these kobolds. And then they have a poker fight. It's kind of hilarious. It's not a poker fight with playing cards, but a poker fight with a fire poker from the fireplace. And I couldn't stop laughing at that part. But while they're fighting, Chad actually walks in. He stops Hinzelman from killing him. Chad actually kills Hinzelman in self-defense because Hinzelman was coming after him. And Chad feels terrible about this because it results in not only Hinzelman's death, but the burning down of his house and all of his memories and everything. So Shadow is riding with Chad in the car. Shadow actually does this thing that he has no idea he could do, plucks his brain, plucks the memory and the stress from the action out of his brain, and relieves Chad of his pain. And then there's this weird moment where Chad, I believe, tries to hit on Sam Crow. The hitchhiker that he picked up kind of feels off to me because I was pretty sure that Shadow knew that she was a lesbian. I never really got the feeling that Shadow wanted to be with her, and it just felt awkward. And then Chad decides that it's time to go visit Chernobog. And when he goes to visit the Zoria sisters, they keep on telling him, don't be here now. Leave. He'll be back soon. And Shadow's like, no, I think it's time. And Chernobog comes in. He's like, oh, you're here for the head bashing. Shadow's like, yeah, I think it's time. Chernobog takes out this sledgehammer, and it's not really a sledgehammer, it's just a hammer, normal size, but it's shaped like a sledgehammer. And he just goes right on his head, as gently as possible. And Shadow's like, what the hell? It's like, I don't want to kill you. You did good. You saved my life. I don't want to kill you. You're awesome. And he lets Shadow go, and it's sad. It's touching and sad. And yeah. And then there's this short little moment where Shadow is out of the country, and he runs into the new body for Odin. And Odin doesn't recognize him. And it's so sad. His own father doesn't recognize him. It's touching and sad, and it's just like, it breaks me down inside, and I'm just like, ugh, why? And that completes our journey through American Gods. I don't have a question because it's the end of the book, and I kind of already answered your question. All of those loose ends were really bugging the crap out of me, but I'm so glad that they got answered and resolved at the end of the book. And hold on. And I saw your answer, Nadir. Yeah, that's a deal breaker for me. I could never read that book now. Now that I know that it ends so horribly. I hate it when people go on a journey and they're trying to find their way home, and then they just realize that they never ever want to go home again. And it's just like, why did I even read this book? Do not forget that the next book that I'll be reading is The Indisputable Existence of Santa Claus by Dr. Hannah Fry and Dr. Thomas Oleron Evans. Go out and grab it by any legal means necessary. Buy it at a bookstore, buy it on a Kindle, borrow it from a friend, borrow it from a library. I don't care what you do as long as it's legal and you read it before I ruin it for you. I've been Elliot the Purple Air Doofus, reminding you to watch your pajamarius, and I will see you all in my overall review of American Gods by Neil Gaiman, with special guest Brian Rowe. Toodles!